Have you ever asked yourself the question, can I be me without losing you? Well, this is the question I asked myself. It hit me one day. I was in my home office and my husband came into the doorway. I was on the computer and he came into the doorway and he asked me a question. I don't remember the question, but I answered with a voice that was not of my own, or so I thought. So I sat there thinking to myself, whose voice was that? I could tell it came from deep within me. And I could feel my husband standing in the doorway thinking, what kind of answer is that? He wasn't very happy about it, but I was fascinated with myself still. I wondered whose voice was that and where it came from. And so I went within myself and asked the question, who was that? And the voice inside said, it's me, we're back. And it felt like I had jumped back into my 16-year-old self. I got into a relationship very young with my husband when I was 16, and I suppose I had put a part of myself on hold, and to be in a relationship, to be a wife, and to be a mother. And so still sitting there, I'm asking these questions to myself, and this voice says, this is what we're doing now. And I'm like, we? What is we? Like, I'm confused. But I realized that I had changed. Like, I'm back. And I was fascinated by myself. And I wandered around for about 3 more days thinking, what does all this mean? And how am I going to explain to my husband that I've been saying yes when I wanted to say no? He's going to go, why? And I don't really know. I just know now that I have been. You know, our last daughter left home 3 months ago, and I realized that I have been protecting myself, my kids. You know, as a mother, I think we're brought up to keep the peace, and I certainly was. I mean, my mother, you know, I grew up in a family of 9 girls, and my mother would do anything to keep the peace, and my father was, you know, I love my father, but he would drink in the evenings and preach from the mantle and scare us girls, and so my mother would rush us off to bed. So I learned to avoid conflict at a very young age, and I learned that peace is what I wanted. And it became my addiction, so much so that I would manipulate things in order to keep the peace in the house and to keep me and the kids safe, because that's what I thought my job was as a mother. That's what I watched my mother do, and that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And what kept me doing it was that I was a good person because I was keeping the peace, but I was not honest and I wasn't being authentic. And worse than that, I was in conflict with myself a lot of the time. And that, you know, can only lead to health issues, which I also had. So, so I became manipulating, and I would lie to keep the peace and avoid conflict. And I was really good at it, and everybody thought I was just, you know, I just had this perfect life. But really, I created that reality. And it really wasn't fair on my husband because he always came out looking like the bad guy. When it wasn't always the case. It's just me. And worse than that, I did not, behaving the way I was behaving as a mother, my mother didn't teach me to stick up for myself, obviously. And now I hadn't taught my 2 children to stick up for themselves. And it was when my son went through a very messy divorce after he had only been married for 6 months that I realized that I didn't teach him to stick up for himself. And this is what I needed to do now. But I first needed to do it for myself, because children learn by example. And if you aren't authentic and you can't talk your talk and walk your walk, then your children will they will see that and they won't be able to either. So I used truth as my mandate. I would speak my truth to my husband. I would tell him everything I was thinking, even though I might be wrong, and we would have discussions about it. I asked him to be a detective in my life with me so that we could figure out why I had been doing these kinds of things. And, you know, ultimately, I wanted to blame him for me saying yes when I wanted to say no. Because if he had just been nicer, then I could have said, you know, the truth. But I didn't want the conflict, and I didn't want to create the lack of peace. But the truth is that I wasn't being honest, and it was my own fear to speak my truth that was causing me to be manipulating, and it certainly wasn't fair in our relationship. So what I had to do was I had to transcend my fear to speak my truth. I had to know that I was a good, kind person and that my authentic self was good enough to present to the world. I didn't need to hide any part of me. I didn't need to be ashamed of anything that I thought, who I was, how I acted. And this is what I did. I completely made myself vulnerable to him. I told him my truth every time he asked me a question, every time I presented myself with a situation. Even knowing that I would get conflict now, knowing that I wouldn't have peace, I put myself out into the scary place that I had avoided for so many years. I wanted to run like clean with myself. I wanted to expose every part of myself so I could truly understand who I was at my core, because I knew that I could not leave this earth without being my authentic self. To ask a person to be less than who they are is torture to their soul. And that is my mission, and that is my message, to help people transcend the fear, to speak their truth, to be their authentic selves. And I wanted to be able to achieve this while keeping my relationship together, because I love my husband, I love my children and my family, and I didn't want to break up family to do this. And I knew there must be a way. Why is it not okay? Why did I think it wasn't okay to be all of me? And so I went on this mission to find out. It took me 4 years. And my husband, there was definitely rocky roads, and it was difficult for him to relate to me, to understand what I was going through. I got sick, I got depressed, but I pulled through. And what pulled me through was the connection I had to my inner voice. And at every turn, I would ask myself a question and get the answer. And I realized that we lead such busy lives, and we are so conditioned to believe things a certain way that we don't question them, as I didn't question why I did the things I did. So my message is to help you be your authentic self and help others to do the same. So if you know anybody that you think would benefit from my message and would like to follow me on this journey to become a messenger of change, and if you would like to comment on this video and share with me your story of how you'd like to become your authentic self, or how you became your authentic self. Thanks very much.